Thank you all for being here. Thanks, Liz, for the invite today. I don't know about the perfect person for this. And living out dreams, yeah, for sure. Honestly, when I was a freshman at Wofford in 1997, don't laugh because some of y'all, was everybody born in 97? No, there you go. So, this was something that honestly at that point in time was just a dream. There was nothing that was going to say, hey, you know what, 15 years from now you're going to be on the PGA Tour. It took a lot of hard work, a lot of work that people don't get to see. People see us play golf Thursday through Sunday. They don't see all the prep work that we're doing at home, all the time we spend practicing. People never see the travel and the demands on our family. I'm lucky in the fact that my family travels with me for about 9 or 10 months a year. There are guys whose families come out maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year, so it's a lot tougher in that respect. There was a couple things I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and then open it up for questions. So in talking about success, I think there's 3 things that are very important. Number 1 is focus. Set your goal and kind of know what your plan is going to be. The second thing would be have a good team surrounding you. And the final thing would be to invest in yourself and invest in your future. So first, let's talk about staying focused. It's easy to tell you, hey, this is what you want to do. You set your goal. This is what I ultimately want to do. How many people in this country do you think are doing what they set out to do when they got out of college? 50%? 10%? I'm going to bet it's less than 1%. How many people, I'm sure there's some of you in here going, okay, I'm going to go to medical school when I leave here, I'm going to be a doctor. You're counted in that 1%. There's probably some people that decide, hey, I'm going to be a school teacher when I get done. There's probably a couple of people that say, hey, I'm going to play the PGA Tour. Yeah, right. But you have to know what your goal is and then set your plan and how you're going to get to that point. You need to know, hey, am I needing to hire an instructor? It's going to help me with fundamentals of the game. You need a sports psychologist, physical therapist, whatnot. So there's all sorts of people that come together to form your team, but we'll get to team later. When you're setting goals, you have to understand that there's 2 different types of goals. Some that are easily attainable and some that you're going to have to work your tail off to get to that point. And you need to have a combination of both. Because if you set your goals super high and you never reach any of them, you're going to look at everything as a failure. If you have some small goals that are easily attainable, it's going to help you with your confidence, build you up. Okay, gotten to this step, what do we do to move to the next step? And then eventually up to where you want to be. Personally, once I finally got my tour card, my first goal was to keep my job the next year. So we have 125 guys who are technically fully exempt. And that's, you have to finish in the top 125 on the FedEx Cup points list to retain your job for next year. Now, if you win, you get a 2-year exemption, or depending on which tournament you won, I actually get 3 for winning Memorial. And then major championships are 5 years. But, those guys are exempt for that amount of time, whether or not they finish inside the top 125 or not. But for everybody else coming out, you got to finish in the top 125 every year. So my first goal every year has been to keep my job for next year. Once you kind of get comfortable with that goal, then you can move it up. Okay, I don't want to just finish top 125 this year. I want to finish in the top 70. Well, top 70 guarantees me into all the invitationals, which would be Arnold Palmer's tournament at Bay Hill, Jack Nicklaus's Memorial Tournament, the Heritage down at Hilton Head, and Colonial out in Fort Worth. I kind of started with, okay, my goal is just to keep my job. Did that a couple of times. Well, now it's finished top 70. Well, I've done that for a couple of years, so now I'm looking at actually top 30, which guarantees me into all the majors the next year and World Golf Championships and this and that. But along the way, still have that goal every year of keeping my card and finishing top 125. So then throw in some longer term goals. If you haven't won on tour, you're trying to keep your card every year, but one good kind of safety net is if you make 150 cuts in your career, then you're a lifetime member. You go into a veteran member category, and so you're technically always a member. Now for me this year, having won the Memorial Tournament, I'll be a lifetime member. But 150 cuts was kind of my next goal. It was kind of my primary goal going into this year, and after 6 years on tour, I think I've made 114 or 115 cuts. So I've only got 35 or so left to reach 150. And 150 is another big number for us because we have certain things that kick in with our pension at 150. But as far as when you're setting your goals and working towards achieving your goals, you have to remember that if you're taking a day off, if you decide to take a week off or a month off, whatever, somebody else is working. I'm in the middle of having 5 weeks at home right now. Tell you how many times I touched a golf club last week. I went down last Monday and played in the Terrier Club tournament in Atlanta. That's the only time I've touched my golf clubs in 10 days. Now, is that a good thing? Maybe. Is it a bad thing? Maybe. Right now, I know that I need rest. So, it's different when you're working a normal 9-to-5 job. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a teacher, whatever, you still got to have rest. And the difference for me is I don't want Saturdays and Sundays off like everybody else. I need to be playing on Saturday and Sunday. So, just remember that no matter how hard you think you're working, there's somebody else that's working harder. You both may have the same goal, but there's going to be somebody that's always going to outwork you. And then, moving on to team, the biggest thing is to surround yourself with people who are going to help you move forward. One thing, I'm not real big on confrontation. I absolutely despise confrontation. But over the last 6 or 7 years, I've actually had to fire 3 people simply because I didn't think they were helping me get better. And I always look at it like this: if you're not with me, then you're against me, and if you're against me, get out of my way, get off my team. So, it's just something that it's part of the business. I mean, I can tell you there's not a CEO or an HR person in America that wants to have to fire anybody. But at the end of the day, the success of their company, the success of their organization depends on every person that works for them. And if you're not pulling your weight, then you're going to be gone. And that's kind of the way it is. I think having a good mentor is huge. If you want to be a teacher, I think having someone who you see who is a great teacher, who's been doing this for a while, that can help lead you in the right direction. If you don't know exactly what you need to be doing to become the best teacher possible, find a good mentor. For me, when I first got on tour, David Duvall was somebody who kind of took me under his wing. I can remember playing practice rounds with him, and my rookie year, every golf course was brand new to me. I'm going out and I'm playing against guys who've played these same golf courses for 20 years. They didn't play practice rounds. They didn't have to. They knew the golf courses. I'm having to learn a new one, and I've got a day and a half to do it. So I'd go out and play with David, and we'd walk up to a green, and he'd grab my ball and throw it off the green in an impossible spot. And he'd go, "You need to figure out how to get it up and down from there." "Well, I just won't hit it over there." He goes, "You're going to screw up and hit it over there at some point. You need to figure it out." And early in the year, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Well, I hit it over there a few times and got over there and didn't know what to do. And so I kind of learned from that. And, more than anything, he helped me with learning how to prepare each week. And another thing he really helped me with was learning how to deal with media. We get tons of questions asked every week. Some of them that you just want to laugh at, but you can't laugh in a reporter's face. And he said, look, he said, just be as nice as you can to them. If you don't want to answer it, he said, just kind of run a circle around the question and then talk about what you want to talk about and make them feel like you answered the question. But then when they get done, they look at you and go, you didn't answer the question. But, you can't just blow people off. Another person was Arnold Palmer. And Arnold Palmer changed the game of golf. period. Before Arnold Palmer came along, golf was not a cool sport. He came along right when TV was starting to pick up sports, and especially golf. And he brought golf to the masses. But when you look at the team that AP surrounded himself with, Mark McCormick. Has anybody heard of IMG, International Management Group? So Mark McCormick was an attorney, I think, in Cleveland. And he met Arnold and formed a friendship with him. And he said, hey, why don't we try to get you some corporate sponsorship opportunities? At this time in the game, nobody had corporate sponsorship. You may get $500 to play Wilson clubs this week, whatever. But nobody had, Pennzoil was a big sponsor for Arnold Palmer early on. And he was doing corporate events for them, he was doing commercials, and it got to the point to where they had to turn people away because of his personality. But none of this would have been possible without Mark McCormick. It was his vision, and Arnold trusted him to say, hey, let me help you. Now, is that something that just happened overnight? No. I mean, they were friends for several years before he let him start doing that. But there was somebody who was looking out for Arnold's best interest. And I think Arnold would tell you that he was a huge part of his team. As far as my team goes, I have, my wife is probably the biggest part of my team. Not only is she a wife, she's a mother, she's a travel agent, she's an accountant, she's a cook, she's a chauffeur, you name it. I have a caddy, I have an instructor, I have a therapist, have an agent, accountant, attorney, the list goes on, and they're all part of your team. Well, they're trying to help me reach my goal of multiple wins, winning major championships, and becoming the best golfer I can possibly be. Now, if any of those people don't start holding their end of the bargain, pulling all their weight, maybe they have to go. You need to have people that are going to help you try to get better each and every day. Even your friends can be part of your team. If you have a group of friends and you got 2 or 3 that are always wanting you, hey, let's go out to dinner tonight. Let's go to a club, whatever. When you need to be doing something else to improve what you're doing, if they're preventing you from being successful, maybe you need to look at them and go, hey, are you really a true friend? And then the final thing I wanted to talk about was investing in yourself. Who can tell me what rule number 1 in business is? Anybody? You got to spend money to make money. There's never been a company that started up and put 0 money in and started making money on day 1. Never. So, investing in yourself is not only financially, but it's also your time. You have to put a ton of thought into what you want to do. What's your ultimate goal? Are you trying to start a business and turn it into a multi-million-dollar business? Do you want to have a mom and pop shop where making a couple $100,000 a year is great, but you don't want to have a big Walmart type business? For me, there's all sorts of things that go into it. One of the things I did this year was I bought a TrackMan, which is a Doppler radar, and when I go out to practice, I can put it down behind me, hook it up to my iPad, set it in front of me. It can tell me everything that my golf club is doing around impact. It can tell me what the ball does from the time I hit it to the time it hits the ground. And what that does is it allows me to go out and practice with instantaneous feedback. I don't have to hook up a bunch of cameras, hope I have the angles right. I can just set it on the ground, start hitting balls, and it gives me instantaneous feedback. Now, that saves me a ton of time. My teacher lives 3.5 hours away. So I can go out and hit balls for 3.5 hours, turn around and send the data to him. He can look at it and call me right back and say, hey, this is what I see from the numbers, simply because he knows that TrackMan system. It's not totally foolproof, but that was something. I got it right before Christmas last year, and I'd always struggled in January playing because I'd taken December off to kind of rest and relax, and and recoup from a long year. But I was able to get right back into practicing this year and hit the ground running in January. And I had a couple of issues early on. Go out there, hit a few balls, send him the data. He'd call me right back and go, here's what it is. Well, turn around and play pretty well those weeks. So it made it all worth the investment in that machine. Another thing when it comes to investing in yourself is promoting yourself. Whether you're a small company, a large company, if you're an attorney, whatever, if you're not promoting yourself, then who is? My agent, I could pay him to promote me, but is he going to do as good a job as I can do? My wife handles a lot of my social media stuff, and I think she does a fantastic job with all that promotion. But there again, if I'm not doing it, who else is going to do it? Somebody on my team has to do it. So, when you're going about your future plans, just remember, if you want to drive business for your company, then you've got to do the promotion. You can go pay a marketing company to do it, but are you going to maximize your money using a marketing company? You can probably do it better yourself. But there again, it depends on the size of company you're talking about trying to build here. There's a couple other things, and this is something I think is very important. How many of you have always wanted to do something, but you were too scared to do it? Well, one thing's for sure, you're never going to know if you don't try. I have a friend that lives in LA. We stay with him every year for the tournament at Riviera. And have any of you ever heard of MySpace.com? He was one of the 6 guys that started MySpace. They started 4 companies before that failed. But every time they had a new idea, they kept going and trying to reach this goal. And when he sold his shares in MySpace, it was a lot of money. And since then, he's probably started, and it's been 15 years or so since he sold out. They've probably started 50 or 60 companies in that time, and I think he's had 2 more be successful. And I remember asking him one day, I'm like, it's been 3 or 4 years since you had a company actually succeed. What's the deal? Are you worried about running out of money or anything like that? And he goes, no, I'm not scared of failure. He said, if all I was worried about was worried about failing, he said, I'd never have a company take off. He said, we come up with all kinds of ideas. I've sat in his house before, and I'm sure everybody's seen Shark Tank. I've watched people come in, sit down at his dining room table for an hour, pitch him an idea, and he'll go, okay, or get out of my house. It's just one of those things that you can't be afraid of failing. And if that's the one thing that you're worried about constantly, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Personally, I went to Q school 6 times before I ever got my PGA Tour card. 6 times. And the way it works when you're on mini tours, if you're on mini tours, it pretty much sucks. It's like bottom of the barrel. Nobody wants you to come to their course. They don't want to host your tournament. Get out of here. You're like worse than the junior golfers at the club. And juniors usually get treated pretty bad. But it's something that it would have been real easy after 1 or 2 tries for me to go, you know what, I'm never going to get there. But this was something that I always wanted to do, and I was never going to let failure be an option. Now, there were times that financially I'm looking at it going, all right, we better start playing better. We're going to have to go to plan B. Now, what plan B was, I'm still not 100% sure. I might have been flying airplanes. I might have been Arnold Palmer's pilot at some point, which would have been pretty cool. But, the one thing with me is I've never been afraid of hard work. And I think anybody that knows me, if you guys know any of the golfers here, they'll tell you that a lot of times that when they show up for practice, I've already been there for a couple hours. And they'll be there for a couple hours while I'm still there. And when they leave, I'll still be there for another hour or 2. And it's what it takes. I know what I have to do to keep getting better each and every day. And, some days it might be an hour total. Some days it might be 20 minutes. Go out there and hit 20 balls and 20 putts. Yep, everything feels good. Let's go back home. And then some days, I went through a stretch at the end of the year here where it didn't matter what I did. My golf game felt terrible. I felt like I couldn't hit the ball, couldn't make a putt, couldn't think well. It's one of those things. And golf is like life, and it's like the stock market and anything else. You got ups and downs, peaks and valleys. The key is to make those downtimes not be severe and not go very long. Shallow them out as quick as possible and keep it going again. And it's just something that hard work and determination will get you through. And the other thing too is you cannot be afraid to ask for help. I changed teachers last year, and this is a lot of irony in this, but I'd worked with my instructor for 12 years. Love him like a brother. To this day, if I need something, I can pick up the phone and call him, and he'll drive from Charleston up here and help me do it. But I just felt like I'd hit a point where I wasn't getting any better. And I decided to make a change. And we came up with a plan. And there's a lot of times where standing in my garage at 8:30 at night after I put the kids to bed, doing drills that were boring, that I didn't really want to do, but I knew I had to do them to get better. And literally 52 weeks after I took my first lesson from him, I won my first PGA Tour event. And all of that is because of all the hard work that I put in leading up to it. And, there's one thing with golf, any sport, business, you never know when you're going to hit it big. Another thing is you never know when you're going to lose it all. The thing with golf is there's nothing that's guaranteed. Just because you won a tournament this week doesn't mean you're going to play well next week. Doesn't even mean you're going to make the cut next week. We've had guys that have either finished last in a tournament, dead last, and then won the week following, or won this week and finished last the next week. There's just nothing guaranteed. And life and business is the same way. If you're not working towards getting better, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. So, does anybody have any questions? Anything they want to talk about? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have like a backup plan in case
I didn't have a really clear backup plan. There were some things I knew I might want to do. Aviation is one of them. I've always been fascinated by planes. But there was nothing that was like, okay, if this golf thing doesn't work out, I'm just going to go do this over here. I'd love to be able to tell you, yeah, but no. Yes, sir. My favorite course I've ever played? Right now, I'd have to say Cypress Point. Ask me again in a couple of weeks, I'll probably tell you Augusta National. Yes, sir.
What did you major in?
Business economics. Who, is anybody taking any econ courses? Who are the professors? Oh yeah, same guys. Yeah, perfect. Shocker. He'll never change. Any more questions? Yes.
How did you balance your athletics and academics since you knew once you graduated college you wanted to continue the athletic career as opposed to
How did I balance everything? Well, let's see. After my freshman year, did I? Well, that's debatable. After my freshman year, I think I had a 3-1, and I didn't play all that great my freshman year. I was Southern Conference Freshman of the Year, but it's not like I really tore it up. And I came home in the summer of my freshman year, and my dad says, well, son, you did great in school. Probably do a little better on golf. And I kind of took it a step or two too far. And that next 2 years was kind of rough. I didn't make the dean's list, but started playing better. But it was just something that, you know, I kind of knew, because golf is different. I can't walk out and turn the lights on and practice at night. So I would go out and do all my practicing basically until dark, come back, eat some dinner, maybe not study. A lot more maybe nots than maybe. But, you know, it was just something that I knew what goal number one was. Even though, and see, I didn't turn pro until almost 3 years after I finished Wofford. I had never done anything while I was here to lead me to believe that I could ever compete on the PGA Tour. So I was working for my dad and still practicing and playing a lot of golf in the summer and playing a bunch of tournaments. But you know, there were a lot of times where golf took precedence over studying, for sure, unfortunately. But I still graduated.
Was there like a turning point where you're like, okay, I want to go try and play pro?
Yeah, in 2003, I won the North Carolina Amateur and the Cardinal Amateur and played well at the U.S. Amateur. And it was kind of now or never type thing. I was getting married in May the following year. And so by that point, it was too late for me to go to Q school. So I stayed and played amateur golf the next spring. And ironically, turned pro a week after I got married. Got married, went on our honeymoon, came home on like a Saturday or Sunday. I left the next day for 3 months to play golf. So yes, my wife is a saint. Yes, sir.
So you said that you had no plan B, right? Well,
There-
you really stopped.
Not a clearly defined plan, Blake.
So you knew that failure was not an option for you.
Yes.
Do you think that that led you to be as successful as you have?
I think it played a large part in it because I knew for me to get to my end goal, I had to bust my tail. You know, am I the most gifted athlete on tour? Not by any stretch. You know, nothing has ever come easy for me in golf. I've had to work for everything. And you know, that's where the guys that know me will tell you that I'll outwork anybody. And the guys on the PGA Tour will flat tell you that I'll outwork anybody out there. You know, I wish I had enough time to show the text messages that I got from players after I won, because it'll floor you in a heartbeat. Because, you know, when you've got guys that have been out here for 20 plus years texting you and saying, hey, proud of you, you've worked your tail off, nobody works harder than you, you know, it makes you realize that, you know, you've been doing the right thing all along. You just have to be patient and let it happen. You know, but at the same time, you still have to continue to work to try to get better each and every day.
Who was the coolest person you got a text message from that day?
There were quite a few.
Go ahead, don't count me. That's your thing.
Probably, as far as golfers go, Jordan Spieth. But as far as like anybody in general, Justin Timberlake, by far. Yeah, it's.
That's a little bit about Elizabeth, just a little bit. Not much, just a little. I think it's competition.
Come on, just maybe like a baby step. It's like one of those toddler steps. No, actually one of the coolest things I've ever done was at Pebble Beach this year. I got to play 3 days with Justin Timberlake and Justin Rose, and then Alfonso Ribeiro, who was Carlton on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was my partner. So that's one of the coolest things I've gotten to do. And you know, the great thing with golf is some of the people that I've met along the way. Not only other athletes and entertainers, but CEOs. You know, I've had the chance to play with. If anybody watched the Arnold Palmer memorial service yesterday, there was a guy that spoke who was the former CEO of Cessna Aviation. It makes Citation airplanes. Arnold Palmer actually got the very first Citation 10 that rolled off the line. So this guy was a very good friend of AP. And I played with Russ in a Pro-Am 5 or 6 years ago. And it's guys like him, yeah, it's great to play with JT, and I've played with Ray Allen, Carlton Fisk, the catcher for the Red Sox years ago, tons of people like that. But it's just as much, if not more fun, for me to play with a CEO. I played with the CEO of Visa a couple of years ago. And to sit there and pick their brains about, what they've done to get to the point in their lives and in their career. What have they had to do to get there? Actually, one of the funniest stories, we were playing, my rookie year, I was playing a tournament in San Jose, California. And you heard of Cisco Systems? Like internet stuff. So I was playing, it was actually a couples Pro-Am. And I'm playing with John Chambers, who is the CEO of Cisco Systems, his CFO, and their wives. And the wives could have beaten them without even trying. John and his CFO are terrible golfers. But we moved a couple of years ago, and I took all my internet stuff from my old house and went and hooked it up in my new house, and it didn't work. So jokingly, I took a picture of it and texted it to John, and I said, biggest piece of crap ever. And 2 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's John. And he says, what's the problem? I said, I was just kidding you. I said, we just bought a new house and moved in. I was going to move my internet stuff over. It didn't work. And he says, hold on. Puts me on hold, and I'm sitting there, and next thing I know, this guy comes on the phone and says, Mr. McGirt, what's the problem? I said, I was kind of half joking, but it's not working. He says, I'll fix it. He says, here's what I need you to do. Plug it in, and I'm hearing in the background, I just hear click, click, click. And he goes, okay, I'm in. You're in what? I'm in your network. Really? 5 minutes later, it's fixed. But, that's something, I was just going to go spend $50 and get another router. But, I was just kind of half joking with John. And, you meet these guys and develop these friendships with them, and you get favors like that. Now, it was something that, I was just kind of giving him a hard time. And because he's somebody that'll send me a note every time I play well, whether it's an email or a text message or an actual note in the mail. It's just kind of cool to get to meet people like that and form a friendship with them. There's been several people like that. What we get to do is pretty cool. It's pretty special. But and the thing is, a lot of those CEOs look at us the same way we look at them. I find what they do fascinating, and they find what we do fascinating. And when I'm playing golf with them, I don't want to talk about golf. And when they're playing golf with me, they don't want to talk about business. So it's kind of like, okay, you get this much time to talk golf, I get this much time to talk business, and we got 18 holes to do it. So, that's one of the unique things about golf. I'm not out here telling everybody, hey, you should go take up golf, but I can tell you that there are so many business deals that are closed on a golf course every single day that it's a game you can play for a lifetime. You don't have to be great at it. You just have to be able to play 18 holes. And there's so much good that can come out of the game. I played in Boston a few weeks ago. And I had played a tournament a couple of years ago with a guy who is the head of North America for EMC Corporation. And they're a big sponsor of the event. And he comes up to me at 6:15 on Thursday morning. We're going out to play the Pro-Am. And he says, hey, I handpicked you today. You're with 4 of my best customers. He said, I know they're going to have a good time with you. I said, perfect. Well, it's the CEO of Firestone. It's the CEO of Advanced Auto Parts, CEO of a muffler company, and another CEO that they were all in the car business. And the funny thing is, not a single one of them could tell you what EMC product they were using. But, Bill, the guy with EMC, knew that I was going to make sure his guys had fun. And, he wanted to make sure that, Firestone's actually or it's actually Bridgestone, not Firestone. I guess they're the same company. But, Bridgestone is already a sponsor of ours. So he kind of knew that angle would be fine, but the other 3 guys had never played in a Pro-Am before. And he said, this is people, they were trying to get involved with the tournament, trying to get involved more heavily in their own business. And he was looking for somebody that was going to make sure they had fun. So he picked me because he had played with me before. And it's just stuff that, you never know when you meet somebody tomorrow, today, as soon as you walk out of here. It may be a week from now, it may be a month from now, it could be a decade from now. You never know when you're going to circle back and meet them again. And that first impression that you make on them, how it's going to affect you in the future. That's something, I've had an opportunity to go do some stuff for EMC, but the timing just hasn't worked out when they've wanted me to come in and do stuff with their clients. And that all came from playing with this guy in a Pro-Am 6 years ago. And, I can tell you that right now, I absolutely despise social media. But the one thing that I will tell you is that be careful what you post on social media, because if you think a company won't search and Google you and find your social media accounts, and if it comes down to you and player B, and they see stuff that you've put on social media that's kind of iffy, and that other person hasn't, I can promise you they're taking the person that's going to be less risky. So always remember, whether it's a comment or a picture or whatever, when you post that on social media, I don't care if you delete it. Remember, once it goes on the internet, it's there forever. There's a way to find it. There's no such thing as it going away. That's one thing I think you all need to be careful of. I know it's easy to, when you've had a few too many adult beverages, take a questionable picture and post it. If somebody ticks you off, it's easy to rip them a new one on social media, but just remember that stuff never goes away. So, any more questions? Yes, sir.
Do you want to answer one question right now?
Sure.
My mom struggled for years to get out of the sand trap. That's the question.
Don't hit it in there. Yeah, honestly, that's a question I get a lot, and it's easier for me to show somebody than it is to just tell you, hey, this is the way to get out of it. Bunker shots are the easiest because you actually don't have to hit the ball. You're using the sand to throw the ball up in the air and out of the bunker. That would be something where I would actually have to watch her hit one before I could just say, hey, this is what you need to do. Any more questions?
What's in your future? What are your goals now?
Well, so the good news is I'm fully exempt for the next 3 years. That being said, I can't take it for granted. I can't get complacent. In 2017, I'll get to play in all 4 majors. I've never played the Masters before, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'll get to play my second U.S. Open, my second Open Championship, and my third PGA Championship. And, those are kind of our 4 biggest tournaments. But at the same time, I have 3 more tournaments that are huge to me. The Heritage down at Hilton Head, because it's South Carolina's only professional sporting event. Wells Fargo Championship, which is normally in Charlotte, but it'll be in Wilmington next year. And then the Wyndham Championship in Greensboro. So those 3 are kind of like my second tier majors. Of those 3 tournaments, I would love to win one of those tournaments. And I'd love to win all 3 over the course of my career. And then obviously the 4 majors are our biggest tournaments, and to play well and have a chance to win one of those would be even more special. But consistency is something that I've always prided myself on. And it's kind of a double-edged sword with what we have as far as how our system goes. You're actually better off missing 15 cuts a year and playing really well like 4 or 5 weeks, having 4 or 5 top 5s and missing 15 cuts, than you would finishing 25th every week. I always thought consistency was much better than, inconsistent but playing really well when you do play well. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. it's kind of a combo of the two things that I think is best. I mean, it's nice to make a bunch of cuts, but if you're not playing really, really well, you're really not making that much money. Whereas I always got frustrated with the inconsistency, even though when I played well, I made a bunch of money. And if you kind of look at the way the system is, it rewards you for inconsistency, but playing really well when you do play well. So I'd kind of like to move it to where it's kind of a combo, where you play well, but when you make a lot of cuts, but when you play well, you play really well. And that way, it's a pretty darn good year. Other goals going forward, it's kind of hard to give you specific ones, especially stuff that non-golfers would understand. I'm going down to work with my teacher here in a few days, and we're going to sit down and come up with. I mean, we'll have 2 or 3 pages of big goals, little goals, very short-term goals, medium short-term goals, and then long-range goals. And the big thing for me is to always see improvement. We look at a lot of different stats and trying to improve certain areas. So it's hard for me to just sit here and tell you, hey, this is what I want to do. But for people that don't understand the game, they won't quite get it. But for a lot of golfers, they would say, oh yeah, no problem.
And in what way do you think that Wofford healthy? What made Wofford special for you?
Well, I tell you, one of the biggest things Wofford helped me with was it made me understand work ethic. Because, like I said, I had a 3-1 after my freshman year, but I worked my tail off. I had to. And then when I slacked off, I understood, that trying to be average and get by wasn't going to be good enough. I'd say that was the biggest thing, was it made me realize the value of work ethic.
Would you pick Wofford once again if you had a chance?
After my experience here, absolutely. When you're looking at all these colleges, I mean, I grew up in a small town. We had 2,500 people. We had 4 stoplights, and 3 of them I could throw a baseball from the first one to the third one. So, coming here, I mean, Wofford was almost the size of my town. I mean, how many students are here now? 16, 1,700? Yeah, it was 1,180 or 1,120 my freshman year. The marketing campaign when I was a freshman was our average SAT score of our incoming freshman class was higher than our enrollment. I helped bring that down. No, I was right on average. But yeah, I mean, if I had to do it all over again, absolutely, I'd come right back. Any more questions? Don't everybody jump at once.
We have a gift for you today for coming out and speaking to our classes. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Also some Wofford stuff in there.
Sweet.
Some wine glasses for your wife too.
How'd you know?
No, we just Southern thing.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it. And thank you all for being attentive and asking some good questions. I mean, I have to do probably a half a dozen things similar to this a year. I did one last year where we go in and there's a breakfast for businessmen. I was telling Liz this earlier. It was supposed to be an hour-long Q&A. And we go in, we sit down, and it's me and one other player. And they introduce us, and we kind of talk for 2 or 3 minutes each. We open it up for questions. Any questions? Any questions? Don't everybody jump at once? Okay, we're gone. Literally, we were there less than 10 minutes for an hour-long Q&A. So it was nice to get questions here. I can remember when I was a freshman. We didn't have this class when I was a freshman, so you guys are kind of lucky. Yeah.
That's the word.
I mean, there's so much stuff that's different here now. I mean, when I was here, Campus Drive didn't run directly in front of Old Main. It actually went over by the old row. So yeah, these 2 dorms weren't here. What else? It was a lot different.
Public city was probably different. Or did you have?
No, the football stadium opened my senior year of high school. So that was a brand new football stadium. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's changed here, and I think everything the school's doing is really prepping everybody a lot better. I think when I was here, it was kind of like you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, tough. It's your own fault. There were some professors that I really liked here, and there was a few that don't care if I ever see them again. So I appreciate everybody being attentive and asking good questions today. And I hope everybody's enjoyed their first month on campus so far. Has it been about a month? Everybody figured their way around town yet? Took me a while.
Favorite restaurant in Spartanburg?
What do you think? They put me on a billboard. No, it's crazy. Like we'll be gone 2 or 3 months at the time, and within 2 or 3 days of coming home, I'm gonna be there at least once. Hamp usually knows when I'm not playing if we're coming back home. All right, what day are you coming in? Tuesday, Wednesday? It's like I'll have you a table waiting.
The real question is, cornbread, rolls, or both?
Rolls, just yeast rolls.
Yeah, I'm a rolls fan too.
Sweet tea.
Yes, always the sweet tea.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we'll have to have a class trip to Wade's. Because have any of y'all, raise your hand if you've been to Wade's. Right, that's a whole lot of y'all that have not been to Wade's.
Y'all are
You might
missing
have to
out.
fix that.
Well, they don't need to go through the express line. They need to get the full
Yes, you need
full
to
experience.
sit down, the full experience. The
Yeah.
food is super fast. The second you order it, it's basically coming out to you anyways. It is
Well,
fast.
I can tell you, I've been there on Sunday after church, gotten there at 10 after 12, and I've been 50 deep outside the door. I've never waited in line there more than 20 minutes. Never. So they've got it figured out.
The food is very good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.